In the vast, unforgiving wilderness of Siberia, where winter's grip is absolute, a story of survival so incredible it borders on the unbelievable unfolded. This is the tale of Nina, a 90-year-old widow who faced 1,000 hungry wolves and lived to tell the tale. Her story isn't just about survival. It's a testament to the sheer, unyielding power of the human spirit against the raw, untamed forces of nature. Nina lived a life of solitude in a small, isolated cabin, miles from the nearest village. Her days were a quiet rhythm of chopping wood, tending her small garden in the brief summer, and preparing for the long, brutal winter. Her husband, a seasoned hunter, had passed away years ago, leaving her with a profound knowledge of the forest and a deep respect for its inhabitants. But nothing could have prepared her for the day the forest turned against her. It started with a howl, not the familiar, lonely call of a single wolf, but a chorus, a symphony of hunger that seemed to rise from the very ground. Nina, looking out her frosted window, saw a sight that would freeze the blood of the bravest hunter. The snow-covered clearing around her cabin was no longer white. It was a shifting, moving sea of grey and black fur. A pack of wolves, larger than any she had ever seen or heard of, was gathering. She counted, her heart pounding against her ribs, until she lost track. There were hundreds, maybe even 1,000. Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to overwhelm her. She was 90 years old, alone, with a dwindling supply of firewood and food. The wolves were a starving army at her doorstep. They circled the cabin, their yellow eyes glowing in the twilight, their breath misting in the frigid air. The scent of her meager fire was a beacon, drawing them closer. They weren't just passing through. They were laying siege. The first night was a nightmare. The sound of scratching claws on the wooden walls, the low growls vibrating through the floorboards, the constant, unnerving presence of the pack just inches away. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the old cabin sounded like a breach. Nina clutched the old hunting rifle her husband had left her, but she knew it was useless. A single shot would be a drop in the ocean against such a horde. It would only provoke them further. Days blurred into a terrifying routine. The wolves never left. They were patient, waiting for weakness, for a mistake. Nina rationed her food, eating only a few spoonfuls of dried porridge a day. She burned her furniture piece by piece to keep the fire alive, the only thing separating her from the circling predators. The cold was a constant enemy, seeping through the cracks, but the fear was colder still. She would talk to herself, to her late husband, her voice a fragile whisper in the besieged cabin, just to keep her sanity from fraying. As her resources dwindled, desperation sparked an idea. It was a wild, desperate gamble, born from a lifetime of living alongside nature, not fighting it. She remembered her husband's stories, old tales of how animals communicated, how they respected strength and understood signals that humans had long forgotten. She couldn't fight them with force, so she had to try to speak their language. Gathering the last of her strength, Nina did something extraordinary. She opened her door just a crack. The alpha, a massive wolf with fur the color of ash, stood just feet away, its gaze locking onto hers. There was no fear in its eyes, only cold, intelligent assessment. Instead of screaming or trying to slam the door, Nina did what her instincts screamed at her to do. She held its gaze. Slowly, she began to hum. It wasn't a song, but a low, steady sound, a vibration that came from deep within her chest. It was a sound of calm, of peace, not of fear or aggression. She poured all of her remaining will into that hum, trying to convey a single message. I am not a threat. I am a part of this land, just like you. I am old, and I mean you no harm. The alpha tilted its head, a flicker of something unreadable in its eyes. The growling from the pack subsided slightly, replaced by an eerie silence. For what felt like an eternity, Nina stood there, humming to the leader of 1,000 wolves. She wasn't a trembling victim. She was a matriarch, an elder of a different species, communicating on a primal level. Then, as slowly as it had appeared, the alpha turned and trotted away. With a single, low howl, it gave a command, and the sea of fur began to move. The pack, as one, turned and melted back into the forest, disappearing as silently as they had arrived. The siege was over. Nina collapsed, her body finally giving in to the exhaustion and starvation, but her spirit was unbroken. When a passing hunter found her weeks later, weak but alive, her story seemed impossible. Officials were skeptical. A pack of 1,000 wolves, a 90-year-old woman surviving by humming. It sounded like a fairy tale, but the evidence was undeniable. The area around her cabin was covered in thousands of wolf tracks, a silent testament to the siege she had endured. Nina's story spread like wildfire, a modern legend of the Siberian wilderness. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest strength isn't found in confrontation, but in understanding. It's about respecting the forces of nature and finding a way to connect, even with those we perceive as our greatest enemies. Nina didn't defeat the wolves. She communicated with them. She survived, not by being a warrior, but by being a whisper of peace in a storm of hunger. Her tale teaches us that courage has many forms. It's not always about the loud roar, but sometimes it's about the quiet, steady hum that says, "I am here, and I am not afraid." Thank you for watching. If you were as moved by Nina's incredible story as we were, please like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you in the next video.